EAGLES, Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody, to a Football Friday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen. Wrapping up the first week of June here, an explosive first week of June. All right, for the Eagles, obviously, A.J. Brown trade happened. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Football Friday, my friend, as we wrap up this week?
Doing well. Trying to get past the A.J. stuff and without pulling out the hair that I don't have. But we'll get there someday. We'll get there.
No doubt about it. We'll get there. We will talk a little bit about that. John, we'll get into that a little bit later because I saw now there's other things people are talking about with the, I don't know, leaking stuff to the media on purpose. I don't know. People seem to be making something out of everything. It's like the Philadelphia. I got a PSA to you.
Scorned
you're
X.
like the scorned X right now. Oh, yeah. Keep tar and feathering it on the way out. It's like kind of an enough, but it is what it is. John, Eagles signed a couple players yesterday. Is that right? Let's talk about those guys first.
Well, not high level. Obviously.
No, not high level at all. But I try and keep people updated on the back of the roster.
It was certainly interesting from the standpoint of a player, Zion Wilson, who was preparing to play in college again, had played at East Carolina, was not scheduled. He did transfer to Virginia with the idea of playing another college season in the NCAA for whatever reason, denied his waiver potential for a 6th year. So can't play in college and probably a draftable player. You know, we talked about how short the draft was from a depth standpoint this year. A lot of guys going back to college because they can make more money in college. Boy, how that landscape has changed things. And I think people haven't recognized it as much as they should. But you know, there's no consistency from the NCAA, so you have no idea why they turned down his request. I have no idea, but he's not allowed to play a 6th season in college, so essentially a free agent and a late undrafted free agent, but a guy who probably would have been drafted if he was in the draft. So typical Eagles move, trying to win outside the margins. Now he is a defensive tackle, and as I said on yesterday's show, that might be the deepest position on the team. So I don't know how, you know, there's a path to a roster spot, even if they trade somebody like Byron Young. But, you know, get him in the building. Never hurts to, again, try to find players and try to win on those margins. And who knows, maybe he just shows up and he's a really, really, really good player. I would think, you know, best case scenario, start him on the practice squad and develop him from there, because it's going to be a very difficult time to make this football team at defensive tackle. But interesting signing, I would say, from the standpoint of just how it went down. And it's not, you know, the Eagles are always doing this type of stuff. I always go back to when Isaiah Rodgers was suspended and they signed him knowing they wouldn't have him for the year. And everybody else is like, well, you know, let us know when he's reinstated and then we'll talk about it. And the Eagles said, we'll sign him. Just let him sit and wait. And they got a damn good year out of him.
Yeah, they did. They did.
So, you know, they think about things a little bit differently, and I think it's usually a positive, and this is probably another indication of a positive situation. And yeah, now you said multiple players. I missed the other one. If you're Chandler Martin, he's re-signed.
Chandler Martin. Yeah, that was it.
He was re-signed. That was sort of procedural. So he's hurt. He was a good college player, by the way. Inside linebacker, rehabbing from a torn ACL. and they waived him to make room for Samori Toure, the wide receiver they signed. And then the procedural Brandon Graham release took place, so they got the spot back and they brought him back. So that was more of a continued of the procedural move of Brandon Graham was under contract through June 1st, and then they had to release him because of the contract. And he might be back. That doesn't mean they shut the door. They always knew, because of the way they set up the contract from a procedural standpoint, they had to release him. And, he might be back at the start of training camp. I know he does want to be at training camp, so that's probably the demarcation line if they're going to bring Brandon back or not, because he thinks he can contribute more with a full training camp. He came in late last season, obviously. But I if I'm a betting man, I think they're going to bring him back. And by the way, that might be a defensive tackle as well, because he ended up last year playing more defensive tackle than defensive end, and that might be the case, which is another reason Zion Wilson might have shopped himself around to somewhere that needed a defensive tackle.
Yeah, a lot of defensive tackles in Philly. All good on that front. So interesting. John, Brandon Graham is now officially gone, right? That move after June 1. I don't really understand sometimes the contracts and the way they work with that, where they had to wait till June 1 for his contract. I guess it's a similar thing to AJ, where it's just about cap relief.
Yeah, exactly.
But Brandon Graham is now gone, right? Officially.
Well, no, that's what I was just saying. He's not. He's off the roster officially, but that by no means he's not going to be brought back to the roster.
Okay, so he's still in the mix.
They just, as they worked out the contract last year, they worked it out to spread it over a couple years. They worked it out, and they always knew they would release him after June 1st, but that doesn't mean they won't bring him back under a new contract. So. But for now, he's off the roster. And as I said, at the beginning of training camp, because he does want a training camp, doesn't have to be the beginning, but somewhere in training camp. If you probably get to week 1, he's probably not coming back unless there's injuries again. And by that point, he might say, because remember, he's got to stay in shape if he's playing the game where he's going to come back in week 9 again. So it's kind of difficult to do that year after year after year. But by no means is the door shut on Brandon Graham returning, but he's not a part of the 90-man offseason roster as we speak today. So that's the only change in Brandon Graham.
And what say you, John? Do you think Brandon Graham should be back? I read from Bleeding Green Nation, our boy BLG. He said, I say yes. BG should come back. What say you, Johnny Mac?
No, I say no. I just think, sometimes you get too caught up in the past. And look, he's a franchise legend. It's not a negative thing, but it's a young man's league. They have a ton of depth at defensive tackle. They have good depth at edge rusher now with Ebiketie and Joe Tryon. Yeah, I don't think they need him. And unfortunately, again, everybody is renting space, and other than the feel good nature of having him around, and by the way, and I didn't read BLG's, but that's probably a mistake. He's a leader. He's an energy guy. He sets a good tone in the locker room. All that is positive. And if you didn't have a bunch of defensive tackles and a bunch of edge rushers, I'd say, yeah, bring them back. But they do. They're going to be cutting guys that they don't want to cut. So, I mean, they already pulled the Band-Aid off once and they put it back on. The used Band-Aid. Pull it off.
I know. It's been a weird end to his career, honestly, with the retirement. Then he came back midway through, and now it's like, is he re-retiring? I don't really know. We'll see what happens.
No, he definitely doesn't want to retire.
Which begs the question of why he did it in the first place. It's like you come back and you have 2 full seasons. You want to get 2 full seasons. It's one thing to be like, all right, I'll run it back one more time.
Well, I thought he knew that. Look, they were moving on, and they were. But
so he was more forced into retirement to you. Not forced into it,
well,
but
more
yeah,
of
I get
look,
what you're saying.
thanks for the memories, but and then they did have troubles on the edge last year. Um, and Zadarius Smith retiring really, was a curveball. And then they brought him back. So I don't think you're going to see that this year. So we'll see. I mean, if he is back, obviously at the most he's playing about 10 snaps a game. Again, I would think they'd be more at defensive tackle than defensive end. And, you got a lot of defensive tackles to deal with. And you remember you have to keep a roster spot for UR. Because I don't think they're putting him through waivers.
No, you think somebody would snatch him?
I mean, waivers tend to be overrated from that standpoint. But when you have a high profile guy, like I joke every year, in camp, you're going to hear about a lot of young guys and everything. Well, you can't put this guy on waivers. 9 times out of 10, you're going to get that guy back.
I've seen that come to fruition with the last 3 years doing the show with you. And you always say this, and then it happens every single year.
Yeah. But in his case, because of the high profile nature, somebody might take a shot, especially if they have a weak roster and they don't mind wasting a spot on a developmental prospect. So, similar to Jordan Mailata back in the day, it's risky. So that one is risky, and that's why I think they'll carry him. And that means you're going to have to cut Gabe Hull or Taquan Graham or somebody like that who's more prepared to play, which is fine. But if you do that with 2 guys, out of loyalty or nostalgia, I don't think that's a good way of doing business.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. John, when you go to that defensive tackle room, you talk about some of the depth there. You think it's strong. I've heard other people say they don't think it's that strong. I guess obviously, everybody's got their own opinion on it. But who is that 4th defensive tackle? Obviously, you have Carter, you have Davis, you have Moro Ajomo. Would it be Byron Young in 4?
Yeah, right now it's Byron,
and then Ty, right? Those would be the
And I don't know what people are looking at, because Byron Young played pretty well last season.
He was a 3rd-round pick, I believe. Right?
I would say darn well for a 4th defensive tackle. And I've even brought up him as a potential trade candidate if you want to get a safety in training camp or something like that, player for player deal. That would be the position I would look at, because they want to get Ty Robinson involved. Obviously, you don't want to give up on a kid 1 year into his career. Gabe can play a little bit. Taquan Graham's played, people don't know him, but he's played a lot of football in Atlanta. And is pretty good rotational player, I would say. So yeah, I would, if I were ranking the depth of the team, defensive tackle would be number 1 on the entire team. So they got a bunch of guys who can play.
Ty hasn't really proven much, right? I mean, I don't know how much he'll play anyway. I think he played like 15% of the snaps last year, I think I read.
No, he didn't show a lot last year, but that's okay. He's a 4th-round pick. Doesn't mean his career's over. It's just people had outsized expectations because of his nickname and his biceps, and played fullback, and they talked themselves into that. I mean, the Eagles still like him, but yeah, he's got to improve. He's got to get better. But developmental part of it is big in Philadelphia, and they take it seriously. And by no means are they giving up on Ty Robinson. Now, if he has another bad training camp, then you start having some serious questions. But I think the goal would be to get him in that 4th spot from the organizational perspective.
I don't know. Is he going to beat out Byron Young, who's played pretty well? Byron Young, I think, played double the amount of snaps as him last year.
Well, but
Young's going in.
But similar to Thomas Booker last year, they felt comfortable trading Thomas Booker because they had Byron Young. And the year prior, Thomas Booker played more.
Did that work out for them though? Like, do you think Howie looks back at that trade and thinks that was a worthy trade? I think he might have regretted that trade.
I think he regrets the part of Jacorian Bennett not working out, and they're not giving up on him either. He's a backup corner now. But as far as Byron Young stepping in, he doesn't regret that. Byron Young of 2025, what year, was better than Thomas Booker of 2024. So from that perspective, it was the right decision in-house to move up Byron Young. But obviously Jacorian Bennett didn't work out to the desire they wanted him to work out. But now, the backup corners, obviously you have Quinyon and Reek, who are both potentially top tier corners. Quinyon is, Reek is potentially. And then the backups are Jonathan Jones and Jacorian Bennett early in the process. So
yeah, I don't know that. I mean, we'll see what Ty does, but I don't know that I see him. He didn't have a great. He's super old, isn't he, John Ty Robinson? Like, he was drafted old.
Oh, he's old he's 20
for a second-year player. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, he's 25 years old, but so not to me, he's not old, but for a rookie, yeah, he's a little bit older, which the Eagles don't generally do. But again, it's day 3. They'll do it on day 3. They're probably not doing it on day 1 or day 2 very often. But day 3, you're just looking for guys you think can develop into players. But yeah, I'm stunned how many people turn the page on Ty Robinson.
I don't think it's turn the page. I think Byron Young played good enough to not get moved down the depth chart. I think he's going to be your.
I don't think he is getting moved down the depth chart if he is here. But that's the point. They got many defensive tackles.
I'd rather trade Ty Robinson. Is my point.
Well, you most likely can't get as much for Ty Robinson. He's not proven. Byron is proven a little bit now. So that's the shuffle you're trying to get. Why was Thomas Booker more valuable than Byron Young? Because he played.
Right.
Byron didn't. Now it's a similar situation that might repeat itself. And that's just, but if he's here, yeah, Byron's going to play. He earned it. But I'm just saying, if Howie has that mentality of, you got to give up something if you're trading for a young safety. I've looked at the CJ Gardner-Johnson templates. Somebody like that who's on the final year of his rookie deal somewhere, who hasn't broken through fully, or for whatever reason, maybe they have depth at safety, another team, and you can bring somebody in player for player. I would look at defensive tackle first.
Fair enough. Johnny Mac, good stuff. John, staying on that defensive side, on the depth side of it, how do you see this depth at linebacker? And who do you think has the chance to emerge from there? Would that be Jeremiah Trotter is the next man up at linebacker 3? Do you think it's Smile Munden? Walk me through the depth in that area of the roster.
No, definitely Trot is next in line. I mean, he takes all, the first team reps now. Jihad's out. Last year, he was the first team linebacker for most of camp with Zach Bond, because Jihad was still coming back from the shoulder, and N'Kobe was out. So, I mean, he's gotten a ton of first team reps and practices over the past dating back to 2025 and now through OTAs. So he's definitely the linebacker 3, so to speak. He's definitely the next in line. Had a big interception in practice the other day. I think he's a good player. I think he's starting level linebacker in this league. He just happens to be caught behind some really good linebackers. So, and then you have a drop off, and next would be Smile Munden. And don't sleep on Chance Campbell, because he's a guy the Eagles really like. Was their best scout team player last year. Very instinctive, very smart. People rave about him. Saquon raves about him. And he was a 6th-round pick in Tennessee a couple of years ago. Really understands how to play. And he could push for a roster spot, especially if he's good on special teams. But Trotter's clear number 3, and then Smile, and then Chance Campbell.
There you go. So you got a good depth there at linebacker too. I like Trotter, John. I mean, obviously everybody liked him because of his father and things of that nature. But it does. I remember last year, early in the year, he was playing well through camp and through preseason. And I forget if he got reps in the first couple of weeks of the year, because this was before Nakobe Dean had come back. But I remember
Jihad had taken over by that point. But that's fine. I mean, he did nothing to lose the job. They would have been very comfortable if Jihad wasn't ready and he would have had to play. They would have been very comfortable. But Jihad got back quicker than expected. You remember early in the process, Vic was like, I don't expect to see him till sometime in August, and he was back early. And he's just, he's just, from a gift trait standpoint, he's just one of the most gifted linebackers in the NFL. So I don't think it's an insult, but they would have been very comfortable starting Jeremiah Trotter if they had to early in the season. A lot like Nakobe in that he's very instinctive, a little bit undersized, high football IQ, more of a run defender than a pass coverage guy. Very similar. I'm not saying he's as good as Nakobe, but very similar types of players. Just very instinctive.
Yeah, right. So we'll see what happens there. He does look physically like he's developing more too, didn't you? I mean, I know you talked about the box drills and looked like he could go forever, but looks like he's put on some weight, some muscle as well, obviously, since he came into the league.
He's always been, pretty well proportioned, but from they list him at 228. A little bit undersized, but that's more the modern linebacker. Certainly, if you compare him to his dad, he's undersized, but that's how you have to be almost in the modern game. So I don't think he's small. He's not long either. Like I said, very similar to Nakobe. A little bit taller, but still, if you think about how rangy Jihad Campbell is and how long he is, it's just a God-given gift, a God-given ability. So he doesn't have that kind of stuff, but, especially at linebacker more than any other position, false steps matter. Like, you could have the physical gifts of Jihad Campbell and make one false step and you're out of the play. Where, if you're instinctive and you're natural and you have a high football, where the football's going, like Luke Kuechly all the time. You can run a 4.8, 4.9 and be more effective than the guy running a 4.4 or 4.5. Like Devin White is probably the perfect example. Incredible physical gifts. Just wasn't very instinctive. And I, because I'm old, I got to cover Jack Del Rio way back, who was one of the best zone linebackers I've ever seen. And he couldn't run a lick from the standpoint of just because he was so smart. He understood coverages. He understood where he had to be, understand landmarks. and he turned into a Pro Bowl linebacker. So, the game's changed since those days, and pass coverage is more important. And they try more than anything else when they talk about mismatches, they're trying to get people on linebackers. Doesn't matter if it's a tight end, a running back, certainly a wide receiver. They're trying to get people matched up with linebackers because the best coverage linebacker in the NFL is at a disadvantage against any competent receiver, whether he's a tight end, running back, and again, certainly wide receiver. They're always trying to match up guys in the passing game with linebackers. So some of that's baked into it. But yeah, I think he's a very good backup linebacker.
John, how about moving to the secondary? Good stuff there on the linebacking crew. Moving into the secondary, it feels like there's good depth at corner as well. And obviously safety is the one area, but I'm wondering how they'll shuffle some of those players. With Vic, you never know what they'll do. What do you see when you look at that secondary? Obviously, Cooper, Quinion, and Tariq Woolen are all in pretty good spots. Then you have Andrew Makuba. You have Marcus Epps. Jonathan Jones is back there. Jacorian Bennett is back there. How do you think the rotation, or at least the depth chart, will look when it comes to corner and safety this year? And who's kind of a candidate that could move around in Vic's defense if needed?
Well, Cooper's the moving piece. Nobody else is
not like Michael Carter. I thought you were thinking like Michael Carter too, maybe.
No, they're trying Michael Carter at safety. And he's been a long time nickel. He can certainly play nickel. He's more proven at nickel than safety, but they think he can be a safety and they want to see if he can do it. So, in fact, I think, the whole point of training camp will be, can he do it? So they'll be trying to get him as many reps as possible. As far as backup nickel, right now it's Mac McWilliams, who didn't have a great rookie season. So similar to Ty Robinson, they're not giving up on him, and he's taking the second team reps at nickel corner. And then the undrafted kid from Ole Miss, Goosh, as Vic calls him, has been playing in the slot. Michael's been playing the second team safety. Well, depends how you look at it. Cooper DeJean plays safety and base next to Drew Makuba, but the real starting safeties are Marcus Epps and Drew Makuba when they're in nickel, and then Michael Carter and Andre Sam have been the top backups at safety. So they're really, really trying to see if he can play that position. If he can't play that position, they'll just move him back to nickel. But I don't think you're going to see moving back and forth. A, you don't want that because that means somebody's hurt. But B, so they know he can play nickel. It's done it his entire career. They're trying to see if he can play safety. But as far as actually moving around, the so-called positionalist player, that's not going to happen. He's got versatility. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
If somebody gets hurt at nickel, he can play nickel, but he's not going to move back and forth. A, he's not expected to play unless he's playing safety. So he's not going to move all around the field as sort of a positionless player, but he can back up safety in theory, and he can back up a slot in theory, but they want to see if he can play safety.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, John, you tell me, feels like the depth across the defense is pretty good, dude. I mean, it's hard to be sitting here on June 5th and have many concerns about that defensive football, side of the team. Obviously safety, but I'm not as concerned as others on it. Feel pretty good about that defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think the defense as a whole is got a chance to be one of the best defenses in the NFL. I mean, every team's got weaknesses. Nobody's perfect. You don't have an all-pro at every position. So, I mean, they have one issue at safety. I don't think it's great. I think, it's funny because like I don't have as much confidence as Marcus Epps as most people do because I think they're nostalgic viewing, back to Super Bowl 57 and when he had a bigger role and he's not the same player as he was then. He's had some injuries, age. They want to get better at that position, but I think you can persevere. If that's your lone weakness, I think you can certainly persevere. And the good part is he's a very smart, very cerebral player. So he'll line up correctly. He's not going to make mental mistakes, mental errors. But you want to get better. It's fair to say that. And that's why they're trying Michael Carter at safety. And hopefully, maybe one of the young kids breaks through. But you can't have everything. So from that standpoint, I agree with you. But I think there's a little nostalgia with Marcus Epps. I don't think that will clearly be a deficiency in the defense if that's the way they go.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see how that shakes out. We'll talk a little bit more about that here coming up after we read our super chat. So if you guys got super chats, don't forget to put them in there. We will read all of those today. I want to welcome and thank everybody for being here on this Football Friday. Another week in the offseason. This one was a big one. A lot of trades around the NFL. Two big ones, obviously. And a big one in Philadelphia here where A.J. Brown has officially been traded to the New England Patriots. The Eagles get back a 2028 first-round pick and a 2027 fifth-round pick. We'll talk a little offense here later on in the program. In hour number 2, we'll talk to Caden Steele. Let's go to our super chats right now. What's up, Brando Shreds? Good to see you, brother. He says this. Is it fair to Jalen Hurts to call this a prove-it year when it's the coaching staff who have called risk-averse offense the last 2 seasons and don't let him pile up stats in the second halves of games?
Well, sometimes they don't pile up stats in second half of the games because they're not completing passes, yes, but sometimes they don't pile up statistics just they're winning a lot. And it's been more of the other than that. So it could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. But yeah, I mean, what are we? I mean, every NFL quarterback, I say this all the time, every NFL quarterback, no matter where they are on the pantheon of quarterbacks, superstar down to this guy shouldn't be a starting quarterback, is under immense pressure. There is a group of people that want to coddle. Yes, it's a prove-it season. It's the last year of his guaranteed money on this deal. He's got $22 million in guaranteed money. What that means is next season, so 2027. What that means is he's not playing for $22 million guaranteed. So something has to be done with his contract after this season. So the Eagles have a decision to make. Do they want to extend him further at over 50, potentially $60 million a year? Or do they want to go in a different direction? Obviously, if he has a great season, if he's an MVP, if they go to the Super Bowl, they extend him. Easy decision. Wipe your hands and be done with it. Say, thanks for the memories. Thanks for doing it, Jalen. Let's do it again. If he has another poor season throwing the football, you have a difficult decision to make. You have a very difficult decision to make because it's not easy to find quarterbacks in this league. Now, Howie has an extra asset to use in the draft with the extra 28 first-round pick. Early on next year is supposed to be a very good quarterback draft. You know, that kind of stuff tends to not work out nearly as good as people project. But if there's 4 quarterbacks in the top 10 and the Eagles like one of them and Jalen's coming off another bad season, but yes, it's fair to call it a prove-it year. He's got to prove to the Eagles that they should continue on this path.
I watched a video yesterday, John, that somebody made. It was Seth Joyner who reshared it, and it was you would have liked it because there was no drama, there was none of the BS, there was none of the speculated things involved in it, and somebody went back and kind of documented AJ's comments, Nick's comments, Jalen Hurts' comments, the way they played offense, Saquon, and they went all the way back to 24. 23, even early 24, and they kind of showcased everything. And I guess their point was saying it wasn't really Jalen Hurts that AJ Brown had a problem with. It was a lot of what the offense, the way they became risk averse, something you've been talking about for years. But this was nice because it showed the comments each week for AJ Brown. It showed the comments by Jalen. It showed the comments by Saquon and Nick Sirianni. So I thought it was interesting. It was all truth. It was all real stuff. Now everybody can have their own interpretation of it, but it was no.
Well, the interpretation is the problem. I mean, the truth is out there. I mean, the on the record stuff is out there. The numbers are out there. What they've done, what they haven't done is out there. The interpretation is the problem. But to your point, everybody can have their opinion, but he does have a problem with the quarterback. I mean, yeah. I mean,
you think he had a problem with the coaches too?
No, absolutely not. Nope.
Feels like he did with Nick to me, but that's just my perspective on it.
People will look at when they were yelling at each other, when he was yelling at him to get on. That's kind of Nick's energy. He's gotten into it with fans. He's gotten into it, and he really needs to control that better, to be honest. But no, I mean, most people. I thought you were going to KP. He's very close to KP. Likes KP tremendously. AJ, I'm talking about.
I was definitely thinking more Nick because Nick is the one who kind of set the direction, didn't he? I mean, you talked about that.
Yeah. I mean, he does have a problem with the risk averse nature of the offense as well. It's more layered than one simple thing, but at the end of the day, he doesn't believe they can have a high volume offense because of the limitations passing wise of the quarterback.
Is that what you think his problem was with the quarterback? Because you just said, he did have a problem with the quarterback.
Yeah. I'm not talking about
a personal thing.
Yeah. No, I'm not talking about. I'm not. Again, there's 4 conspiracy theories out there.
Yeah.
So it depends on which conspiracy theory the particular wingnut wants to hang on to. There's one, I don't even want to talk about it there, but there's one radio host who keeps bringing this shit up and likes to point out he was right because he said something like 2 years ago that turned out to be right. From a general perspective standpoint. And, he's already shifted to now the wives don't like each other. That's the reason. So before it was a son, now it's the wives. It's like, can you pick a conspiracy, pick a lane? But from the standpoint of, yes, they're not as close, which I said on this show for 2 years.
I mean, AJ admitted that much, and I don't think that's up for speculation anymore.
Well, now it's not because of the Maria Taylor interview. But how many times do you have people say, you're lying, you're making stuff up? And now they want to shit on him out the door and believe every conspiracy theory there is. But
no, I'm not looking to shit on him. I'm more trying to find the truth because I think it's still relevant to this Eagles team.
Well, the truth is, and everybody in the building knows it, including Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts, ironically, has said it publicly as well on numerous occasions that the passing offense needs to be better. I mean, I don't even know why we have those discussions. Because if you take AJ out of the equation, and I'm not talking about out of the building, I mean, if he didn't even exist, everybody would still know the passing offense needs to improve, including Jalen Hurts, who has said it on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
And has said on multiple occasions, the one that stands out, if you don't use it and you need it, it might not be there, basically. I'm paraphrasing. And 1 year it was there, and 1 year it wasn't there. 2024 it was there at the end. 2025 it wasn't. So he ended up being right.
Yeah, well, I think people also bring up those Hurts comments from that Rams game, John, when they came back big last year. You know, and even Jalen after that game said, we got to get out of this plan not to lose. I don't know exactly I don't have the word for word what he said in that interview, but he was pretty open in that interview with Pam Oliver and said, you know, we can't play football this way every week. So I don't know. Look, Jalen said a lot of contradictory things where he said the offense looks how I want it to look. So there's a lot of contradictory things you can say there, but that was a sign, at least last year, that Jalen, in some regard, to some extent, was feeling like the way they were playing offense wasn't going to work.
Well, yeah, they're tremendously risk averse.
And that's where I feel like AJ and Jalen agreed. That's kind of what I was trying to say there.
Yeah, certainly. When they've said it on both have said it on the record. But it's hard to argue that when you win every game in 2024. You know, you're and that's why it wasn't as pronounced in 2024, because how do you're literally winning every game. And the only game you lost is because Jalen got a concussion 6 minutes in, and Washington didn't win the game until there were 6 seconds left. Other than that, they would have won 17 for 17. So it's kind of hard to say it's not working when it's working. But I would bring it up all through that year. I go, oh, but this is a really small margin of error. You know, it's sort of like the Phillies pitching now. If you have Sanchez out there, if you have Wheeler out there, you know, you feel pretty good, but the game's 2-1 or 1-0, and you're like, you're sitting on the edge of your seat because, you know, they are human beings. So, you know, one pitch goes a little bit off where they want it, and bang, you got a 2-run home run, you lose the game. So, you know, but they got a Super Bowl out of it.
Speaking of Christopher Sanchez, did you see that streak he was just on, John?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
50 innings, 50 2/3, I think it was.
So, you know, you look at a team like that and they say, well, you get in the playoffs and you got those two at the top of the rotation. You might win a bunch of games, like I said. But, you know, when you're playing with fire in 2-1 games in baseball, it's like, you know, one error, one stolen base, one wild pitch, it's a small margin of error when your offense stinks.
So do you think the risk-averse approach is now officially behind them? Do you think they will shed that this year?
No, I mean they're uber focused on, and they should be. Again, it's a difficult tightrope to walk because you don't want to turn the football over. I mean, that's the surest way to lose football games. So, I mean, I've been around different coaches, and no, I've never seen a staff spend more time on ball security than this staff. Staffs, plural, because it's been a bunch of different staffs, and they're still doing it. So, I mean, it's still a big part of Nick Sirianni's sort of ethos as a coach, but and a lot of people say, you know, well, that's obvious. Everybody doesn't. No, they don't. I've seen other staffs, they don't spend as much time on it as the Eagles do. So they want to just ship the offense and keep the ball security if that's possible.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, Brando, thanks for the super chat, brother. Good stuff. Here's Power Ranger. What's up, Power Ranger? Trading McKee before we know if Hurts is the future may come back to haunt us. If they choose not to extend Hurts after this season and McKee ends up becoming a quality starter elsewhere, that's not good. I think we're a little early for that combo, but
yeah, I mean, if I mentioned like Andy Dalton is getting significant second team reps, at least in the practices we've been there. We'll talk to Caden about that, what he thinks about that, but it's certainly eye opening to me. I mean, I'm interested. I'm always interested with young players. Like, there's some young players that fans gravitate onto, and some they don't. And there's no proven nature of the particular player. And I'm always interested. Tanner McKee's a guy, like, what has he done that you're sitting up at night? No offense, Power Ranger, that he might come back to haunt you.
Well, I just think it's his skill set that people like because he's a processor and he gets rid of the ball quick because that's the way he's played football his entire life. He's 6'6". He's got the arm, he's got the strength, arm strength, and he gets the ball.
Well, let's take a look at Sam Darnold because he won the Super Bowl. Like, is he haunting the New York Jets? He's not winning the Super Bowl with the New York Jets. Is he haunting the Carolina Panthers? He's not winning the Super Bowl with the Carolina Panthers. Maybe he haunts San Francisco a little bit because Kyle probably knows, but he'll never admit it. And he has a good quarterback. Is certainly haunting Minnesota a little bit. So, I mean, like what? I mean, and that's, he was the third pick in the draft, so it's not a good, Tanner's a 6th round pick. There's some limitations there from a physical standpoint. And if Andy Dalton's coming in and beating him out at 38 years old in 2 weeks, I wouldn't lose much sleep, is what I'm trying to say. Because I think Andy is a very good backup quarterback at this stage of his life. And he obviously understands how to play the game. And you talk about processing, that guy can process. I mean, now they're next to each other, right? So when you talk about processing, right, Tanner McKee versus Andy Dalton, well, it ain't close.
So what percentage chance would you put on them getting rid of Tanner McKee this summer?
I'm over 50. I think they're going to try to do it. Ironically, I don't think if they want to trade him, they're not going about it right. They should have him out there during practices and let the media rave about him. And then, you can build up his value. Right now, his value, I would think, is down because Andy Dalton's already taken second team reps. But I would say, and Cole Payton's he hasn't looked like Clayton Thorson, or he hasn't looked like Carson Strong, where he's completely overmatched. So they'll probably want to keep him, and they're not keeping 4 quarterbacks. So, somebody's got to go, and they might trade Andy. Andy probably has more value. If there's an injury and somebody needs a bridge quarterback, Andy might even have more value still at this stage.
We'll see what they end up doing with McKee this summer. Appreciate everybody for being here. Power Ranger, thank you for the super chat, brother. Anthony Hunt checks in. What's up, Anthony Hunt? Good to see you, brother. Is paying Carter holding the Eagles back from improving their defense?
Well, they haven't paid him yet, so certainly not yet.
Yeah, but I think what he's alluding to is that it feels like they've let people walk because we know the contracts that are coming up, if that makes sense.
Well, and then you have to add Quinion and Cooper. I mean, certainly the group of guys, yes. I mean, but it's a whole group, and you've already seen Jordan Davis. They gave him more money than we all expected. So but he's just part of that group that they know they want to pay and they have to pay. And it's a pretty big group, so you have to make some decisions because you know what's coming. I was pretty comfortable at one point that he was going to set the market at defensive tackle. I'm not sure that's going to be the case any longer, but he's certainly going to be top 5 at the worst case scenario. For him, Quinyon Mitchell's going to set the market at cornerback, outside corner. Cooper DeJean is a difficult one because they got to pay him like he's a superstar, but generally you don't pay slots. But he's gonna break the bank for slots and be the number 1 paid slot cornerback maybe for 5 years because nobody else is coming to break it. And then you have Jalen Carter, and you probably can't bring Morrow back. He's the next one. You probably have to make a decision between Nolan Smith and Jalen Hunt. You can get one, you can't get both. So is he part of it? Yes. Is he the only reason? No. I mean, they got potentially, they already did one. They got 2, no doubt about it. Market setting contracts, maybe a third with Jalen Carter, where they have to pay the most at corner, most at slot corner, most at defensive tackle, potentially. And Jalen Hunt, if Jalen Hunt has 10 sacks this year, what's he gonna make?
And they'd have to pay him pretty quick, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, he's a third round pick,
right.
so and this is extension. They could wait after his 4th year. They could play that game, but they have a little bit of time. But the point is, if he performs, he's getting a lot of money. So it's a whole cluster of guys. And then by the way, if Jahad Campbell keeps playing like the way he's playing, if Zach Bond keeps playing at a Pro Bowl level, I mean, what are you going to do with him? You're going to get rid of him? I was asked Esther, who's the best pure player? Well, the best pure player on the team over the past few years, defensive player, has been Zach Bond or Cooper DeJean. You want to get rid of Zach Bond? Remember the linebacker play before he got here?
Yeah, right. What do you think they'll do with Bond, though? How many more years you see with him in Philly? 2? 1?
Well, he's a little bit older, but he's a young old, and by that I mean he never played in New Orleans, but played very little.
Got a lot of tread on the tires, I think he used to say.
Yeah. So, but he is going to be 30 in December, so that's a dirty word. So I think it'll be like, if he plays well, he'll be on sort of the Saquon mode. If he plays well, they'll give him another year. They'll tack on another year and keep the buffer year. But if they start seeing the descent, yeah, you got to move on. But man, he's been something over the past 2 years. And I don't see any signs of it slowing down. So I would say at least 2 more years. And then maybe things start slowing down. But, there's no reason can't play well deeper than that. So,
Anthony, thanks for the super chat, brother. Our next one, John, this is something I wanted to talk to you about before Caden, so I'm happy that Jason brought it up in a super chat. Jason gives us $20. Jason, thank you, brother. Appreciate it. He says this: after the deal Watson just got, Christian Watson, this has to mean the Eagles are going to give Smitty a nice raise. Who else on the team do you think can get an extension that people are not paying attention to? Players like a Jomo, Hunt, etc. And I think DeVonta Smith is a very relevant one as well, Jason. Good call by you. John, what say you?
Well, certainly not a Jomo, as I just talked about. It's going to be very difficult to pay all three of those guys. And the projection is that obviously you're going to keep. You've already extended Jordan Davis, and you want to keep Jalen Carter. So it's going to be he's going to be in the Milton Williams spot. Unfortunately, I think, because he's going to make a lot. I don't think he's going to make as much as Milton, but he's going to make a lot of money. DeVonta obviously is already highly paid. He is under contract through 2020. I'm not counting the void years. He's voided out till 2032, but they already extended him. So he's technically under contract through 2028, but he's really under contract through 2027. So they got 1 year to deal with. So I, by no means do I think they're going to extend him early. They just have too many issues cap wise. And they have the time, so they will extend him, but not this year. Just not time. And that bit them in the ass too with AJ. They were very proactive on AJ because they extended DeVonta. Yeah. So that bit them in the ass a little bit. And they're dealing with $43 million of dead money because of it. So they're probably going to be a little bit more cautious.
Yeah, safe to say DeVonta is a pretty cheap wide receiver number one right now, though. I mean, did you see the Drake London deal? The guy's getting like $36 million. I'm like, what?
Dude's a good player, man. Good player. I tell you, man, people don't know. If Atlanta figures out the quarterback situation, they got a good team. They got a good team.
Well, have they? They haven't really figured out. What do they have? Tua now? Tua and Penix battling?
Yeah. But doesn't surprise me at all with Drake London. With Christian Watson, immense talent, but obviously just a shitload of injury issues. And Drake got a lot more than Christian.
You think Drake London's better than DeVonta Smith?
Well, different style, but
very different.
I mean, I wouldn't say. I would say if they would have played, if they would have stuck with Kirk Cousins, people would think he's better.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think he's a really good player. Depends what style of receiver. I think DeVonta's a really good player. He's an X. DeVonta's more of a Z and a slot. So it depends on the style. I'd like to have them both. He's like AJ. I'd like to have them both, but I think people look at X and say they're more valuable, so that's the reason.
I mean, this could be a year for Drake London, though. I mean, Tua, whatever. People can have their problems with him, but Tyreek Hill did have 1,700 yards.
Yeah, he's a volume guy.
Years. That's what I mean with Tua. So
but
you
now,
can get that volume.
Now he's got all the concussion issues too. And I think he's gotten worse. So I don't. But in his prime, you're right. He was a volume guy and he could put up numbers. He will put up numbers. But with him and Bijan Robinson, man, and Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
I mean, and their offensive line is pretty good.
Boy, that GM really botched that moment.
Yeah.
Who was it? Terry Fontenot, I think his name was.
Yeah.
He's since been fired, right?
Yeah, Ian Cunningham's down there. Ex-Eagle.
Yeah, that's right.
Ex-Howie guy.
Will he figure it out?
Probably not. If you can't find the quarterback, I mean, right now they're talking about, Penix is coming back from another ACL. And Tua is just not good enough. I mean, until you figure that out, you're in trouble. And that's, sort of the Eagles when we back to our prove it question. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to find quarterbacks. Look at all these teams trying to find quarterbacks. So it's, I've always been of the belief for the people that listen, build around Jalen Hurts for as long as you can. But, they've shifted off that, at least on paper, by going to this different style of offense because it's really hard to find quarterbacks. And they've won 74% of their games. I mean, what the fuck are you complaining about? I don't get it. Other than Ricky Bobby rules. Well, you haven't won every year. Well, it's hard to win every year. And I go back to last year with all the freaking problems. If two guys were healthy, they win 13 games. They're probably not winning the Super Bowl. They're probably getting beat by the Rams or the Seahawks, who are better. But I think 13 wins changes things for people. Maybe I'm wrong because the expectations are so high. And if they lose to Seattle, 14-7 and the offense stinks, and maybe it would be the same thing. But I mean, they weren't a bad team last year.
No, but they were a bad offense. I know you've pushed back on this. They were a bad offense.
No, they were a below average offense. Again, that bad offenses are in Tennessee, New York, the Jets. Those are bad offenses.
Yeah, but like you always say, it comes down to expectations, but expectations are real and they're set for a certain reason. The Eagles organization expected to compete at the highest level last year. They didn't expect for them to be average offense. That has to go into it, though. If you're the Titans, you're not even expecting to compete.
They won a Super Bowl with a below average offense. So, why below average passing offense? Obviously they were very good in the run game.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, why was it, there's something you can blame the organization for. If that's their belief, there was no evidence to back up that belief. So they should be ashamed of themselves then. And I don't think it was, but, if it was, what, you're just going to turn on a switch? I mean, because then they should have listened to AJ, and they should have listened to Jalen, and they should have listened to DeVonta, and they should have listened to Jordan Mailata. It's not going to be there, if you don't use it. You're going to wake up one day and it's not going to be there. That's what happened.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I disagree with you a little bit about the offense. I just don't think it was anywhere close to good enough for this team. And maybe
I
my
don't think it was good enough. I just don't think it was the worst offense in the history of mankind.
No, it wasn't that. But I mean, it wasn't good. It wasn't good.
I think
it wasn't a good offense for a contending football team.
And I think the issue began. Well, anytime you can't complete a pass and a half, and they did it on multiple occasions.
With the talent they had. That's why I use the word suck.
That's.
I know you compare it to the.
I would cross out with the talent they had. That's what I push back on. Like, I don't care.
No, I understand they might not have been the same level of what we thought, but John, come on, man. All that talent. Look, were they as talented as we think? Maybe not. I'll agree with you on that. Come on, J-Mac.
If you don't have a high volume passer, you should never expect to have a high volume passing game. Ever. I don't care if you bring in Randy Moss and T.O. and AJ in their primes. If you don't have a delivery system that is high volume, you're not going to have a high volume passing offense. Period. End of sentence. Doesn't mean you can't win football games. as they've proven. Got to go about it a different way. Why can't people accept you have to win a different way?
I can accept that. But I also think it's realistic to say that the talent on the Eagles was good enough to not go multiple halves of the year without completing passes. That's where I'm like, all right, you're right. We can have too high of expectations. We can have too high of an assumption about how good the talent is. But that, to me, is egregious levels of underperforming.
Tennessee and the New York Jets should be able to complete a pass and a half of football. So, I'm not defending that. Those were atrocious stretches. And one of the frustrating things with the Eagles last year was that they would have really good stretches and then just go off the face of the earth. And my biggest criticism is they don't get the quarterback layups, although maybe the quarterback doesn't take the layups.
That I agree.
I don't know.
Well, I agree with the layups part. I don't know whether it's them or it's the quarterback, but I agree with the layup part of it for sure.
So it should be easy. If you're 0 for 8 and you're struggling in passing game, throw a bubble screen. I hate them, but throw it. Throw a smoke screen. Throw a little swing pass.
I'll tell you what I think is egregious from a expectation standpoint. If you listen to Philadelphia fans this summer, you would have thought they had the worst offensive line in the history of freaking mankind.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Last year.
I know.
Like, that's where I'm like, we're going, that's too far. That offensive line was not that bad. In fact, they were pretty good in the passing game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was still a top 10 offensive line in the NFL as a whole. Still.
Agreed. That's where I'm like, people, that's where I think people have gone too far.
Yeah. I'm with you 100% there. The year prior was one of the best offensive lines literally of all time. So that's still a big downgrade, but yeah, it's absurd the way that people say it was, a terrible offensive line. All you can do is you have to rate people against their peers. And there's nobody in the NFL that would tell you the Eagles coming off last year as, one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. It's hyperbole. It's ridiculous.
All right, one more super chat here. Pumper says, at least we got one question answered. It was A.J. Brown who leaked all those locker room secrets. How can anyone trust someone like that? John, your response to what the people are talking about now, saying A.J. Brown is the leak in the locker room.
I'm glad, my buddy Jeff Nyberg answered it. So I'm going to give Jeff the credit because I just, as you can see, and of course it's Pumper bringing it up. So I'll give it to Jeff. I quote Jeff, "This isn't new or interesting. It is totally being wrongly portrayed in social media, which shouldn't be surprising. AJ has admitted to us, reporters, what he's saying publicly, that sometimes he felt saying what he said in interviews could light a fire under the offense. He knew what he was doing. Complaining about the passing offense after it sucks. This is Jeff, but he's 100% correct. Isn't leaking
Jeff thought
stories.
It sucked. All right, me and Jeff are on the same page there.
Isn't leaking story. I said it sucked. Isn't leaking stories to the media. I'm talking about the baton stuff. AJ Brown has told me a ton of shit off the record, which you will never hear about because it's off the record. And that's what it means. What he was talking about in that interview was the shit he has already said publicly that he believes that when he says stuff in public interviews that it could light a fire under the offense. Like, my God, pay attention. This is stuff that frustrates the shit out of me. But thanks to Jeff Nyberg, hat tip of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Go read Jeff at the Philadelphia.
I'll give a little hat tip here to the Godfather, Fredo. I love you. Don't ever take sides. Don't ever take sides with anyone against the family again. Come on, AJ. Come on, AJ. I don't know. You guys tell me. I know everybody thinks it's all. I don't know, John. Yeah, I'm so done with this whole AJ thing.
Oh my God! Don't take side. Not my fucking family. I'm not saying you.
I'm not saying you. I'm saying AJ.
The Eagles. Who? AJ? I don't know. Nobody. You guys take the sides. I mean, you're rooting for laundry. Jerry Seinfeld said it best. You loved AJ for 4 years. Now you hate him. That's shit you guys got to work out. You know, you defend him. Now it's time to shit on him. Same thing will happen to everybody else.
Yep, that's the truth. That's the truth. That part I agree with. Here's Gary. What's up, Gary? Good to see you, brother. In 23, it was clear it was Hassan leaking. The Jalen leak is clearly Patullo. AJ pissing me off more than the next one, but J-Mac is right. I don't know what you're going to agree with.
First of all, no offense, Motorscape, and thanks for being a member for 20 months, but it is not clear that it was Hassan leaking to you. I mean, what the fuck, man? So I guess you're in the Hassan Reddick stuff. The Eagles were not re-signing Hassan Reddick. They were not re-signing Hassan Reddick. He held out with the New York Jets because Joe Douglas made the mistake of believing that he could trade for him and he'd play under the contract, which he would not. And it was pretty acrimonious at the time. He wanted more money, deserved more money, by the way, advocated. You can ask Jody McDonald. I would say on the show, this is his time. Use that leverage to get more money. He's underpaid. He didn't do it. The next year, he didn't perform as well in 2023. The entire team didn't. Obviously, they weren't going to extend him. They didn't want to pay him at the top level. He wanted to be a top paid edge rusher. They didn't believe he was that style of player, that type of player. Ultimately, they were proven right. They made a wrong decision by signing Bryce Huff, but that's, they wanted somebody at that range. If Hassan Reddick would have played on his final year of his deal with no guaranteed money, they would have said, yeah, let's run it back. Who does that? Jalen Hurts has got $22 million of guarantees in 2027, and we all know he's not playing under that contract. You think somebody with no guaranteed money is playing under that contract? That's not how it works. I can't keep up. There's like 4 conspiracy theories. God, Caden's here. Thank God. I can't keep up with them. I think Craig Carton changes daily which one he believes. So, you got to tell me which conspiracy theory you believe, and then I'll blow holes in that particular one. But I can't spend all day speaking about 4 conspiracy theories. He didn't like the freaking offense, like everybody else. They don't pass the ball enough. They're not a high-volume passing team. He doesn't think Jalen Hurts can be a high-volume passer. That's it. That's why he's out. Now, I'm not saying there's adults. I'm not saying people don't have affairs. We're all adults. Shit happens. They're not making football decisions on days of our lives. It's bullshit.
Good stuff. All right. Appreciate everybody for being here today. A lot of good super chats. A lot of super chats to get Johnny Mac fired up, which is not always a bad thing, J Mac. It's not always a bad thing here. So we appreciate everybody being here today. Don't forget to hit that like button. All right. Let's go with Caden Steele. He's set to join us right now here on Birds 365. He joins us. You can follow him at Caden_Steele19. Read all his work at NJ.com. Caden, welcome into the program on a Football Friday. Post A.J. Brown trade. How you doing, my friend?
Doing good. John is fiery. I enjoyed it.
He's fired up.
Oh, man. I can't take it anymore, man. Caden, you got to do the heavy lifting for me. My God. Where are you? Where are you on the conspiracy theories?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether they're factual or not, so I don't want to get into. I would agree with you that, I mean, people are people, and maybe stuff has happened. I don't know what has happened necessarily. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying nothing has not happened between Jalen and AJ. That is personal, but ultimately, I do believe the Eagles moved on because AJ was unsatisfied with Jalen's quarterback play as the main reason. But could there be some personal stuff? Yeah, sure, but I don't want to speculate what that is without hardcore evidence of something actually happening and proof. So, yeah, that's the best I could probably sum it up. But I think AJ's gone for mainly football reasons.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Caden, what'd you make of the trade? They got back a 2028 first-round pick. He's now out the door. 2028 first, 2027 fifth-round pick for A.J. Brown. What'd you make of it when it happened? Your thoughts on the compensation, the trade, and what it means for the Birds?
Yeah, I overall thought it was a good trade. I mean, anytime to get a first-round pick, I think is valuable. I think I agree more with Howie Roseman's line of thinking that a first-round pick is a first-round pick than some of the leagues thinking that, if you wait a year, that value is more like a second-round pick. I'm more in agree. I agree with Howie Roseman on that. So I think it's to get a first-round pick is what they ultimately wanted. Like, would they have rather gotten a 2027 first-round pick in a class that's supposedly super loaded a year out when there's so much hype about it? I'm sure they would have, but it seems like the Patriots didn't want to give up that price. I think to get a first-round pick was a win. I think A.J. Brown's a really good player. I get at the beginning of the process, I thought maybe they could get like a third-round pick back or something, but starting to think about, the concerns about his knee, his age, how his game's going to translate as he gets older, because he's so a lot of his impact is just built on how physically dominant he is with his physical tools and just his size and his athleticism. And just I don't know, 2 years from now, if his knees are cooked, how good he's going to be. Is he going to fall into that DeAndre Hopkins portion of his career where he's just a big body wide receiver that doesn't create as much separation anymore? So I can see why the Patriots were hesitant to give up more than, a first-round pick and a mid-round pick next year. But overall, I think it was a good trade. I think I would have rather gotten in 2027, but, the Patriots weren't coughing it up anyway.
No, but I do think the uncertainty could end up helping the Eagles, and the fact that obviously this year would have been the 31st pick in the draft. If you're playing the odds, it's very likely that the Eagles will be getting a better pick than that in 2028.
Yeah.
Now they could win the Super Bowl that year, and it could be worse. But if you're an odds man, you're going to bet on it being better. But to me, it's also an extra asset. So we're talking about Jalen Hurts. This is it. This is, they got to do something after this year. They got to make a decision. If he plays well, great. That's the goal. You extend him. Everything's copacetic. But if he doesn't play well, he's only got $22 million in guaranteed money in 2027. You got a big-time quarterback draft, supposedly, early in the process. Everybody thinks that. And now you have an extra asset. All of a sudden, Caden, if you think about, well, if Jalen Hurts doesn't have a good year, maybe the Eagles are picking 15th or 16th. And you have another extra pick. You can send the 15th pick, say, and a future burst. You can get up into the top 10 if you like a quarterback. That insurance part of it, I think, is a big part of it as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure that has some part of their thinking with acquiring this first-round pick. I mean, they haven't given him an extension yet. I think it's clear now they want to see him run this offense and execute it and live up to what they think he could be. I still think they believe in Jalen Hurts overall, but there is some pressure on him, and there is a chance that, if things get really ugly this year, that they move on from him. And if you want to find a new franchise quarterback, having 3 first-round picks in 2 years is a good way of being able to get what you want and find a way to get up and get that guy. So I think that's possible, but it also helps if, It's an extra first-round pick if they want to trade for the next superstar edge rusher that becomes available in a year or two, or the next, let's say, Mekhi
Would have been
Lemon.
nice to get Myles Garrett.
Yeah,
but
definitely would have. Or let's say, and I like him. I know you're not high on him, John, but let's say Mekhi Lemon is only just a slot.
I'm not high on Mekhi. All I said about Mekhi Lemon is when I first saw DeVonta Smith, I knew he was going to be a good player. I don't see that with Mekhi Lemon. That's all.
I know, I was just messing. But if he's only a slot wide receiver, let's say, and he doesn't live up to the 20th overall billing, I mean, the next star wide receiver that becomes available, I mean, it gives you a lot of different options. So I think to get the 2028 is a good result either way. It's either going to help you move up in the draft to get your future franchise quarterback if Jalen Hurts is not it, or it's going to help you get another star if Jalen Hurts proves that he can run the system and you give him another extension. You can use that, that pick to potentially go get another star.
All right, let's.
Well, what do you think?
Go ahead,
John.
man.
I was just going to say, what do you think of the team now post AJ? We have this big looming question, Caden, about, all right, the offense hasn't been good enough for this Philadelphia Eagles team. And now you take the best offensive pass catcher on the team, maybe ever in Philly, for crying out loud. You get a coordinator who's never called a play in the NFL in his life, and an expectation that the passing game is going to be much improved. How do you kind of gauge that now in life after AJ?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions with this offense. I think what you just talked about as the scheme is the biggest question. I mean, we don't know how good Sean Mannion's going to be. Jordan
He's
Mailata,
an evil genius. Come on, we know.
He's an evil genius. And people talk really highly about him. And who knows, maybe he will be great. And if he's great and he gives them such of a schematic advantage, not just like, Shane Steichen did at one point, he was a really good offensive guy, but if he's like truly one of these elite offensive minds, I do think it will help to have a guy like that. I mean, it will help elevate some of the talent. But ultimately, it comes down to the player still. I mean, if Jalen plays terrible all year, I mean, I don't know how much it's going to matter how great his scheme is if he's not hitting open throws and he's not running the system well or they don't adjust. I think it ultimately comes down to the players. I mean, Sean Mannion's a big question. When it comes to the talent on the team, I think ultimately how good this offense is going to be comes down to how good this offensive line is going to be again. I mean, they weren't good last year. I mean, Cam Jurgens was banged up. Lance Dickerson's banged up. They went down to Columbia, for goodness sake, hoping that will revive their body.
Medellin stem cells. Yes.
And the Eagles are hoping, I mean, I'm sure they're hoping that helps their bodies recover because they need it. I mean, I think this ultimately is going to come down to how good they can run the ball. Because I don't expect them to change into a team that's going to throw the ball over 30 times a game.
Not going to happen.
I just don't. And I think that's unfair to Jalen. I think Jalen is a good quarterback overall. And I think he does well when he's efficient and he's asked to throw, less than, I just think he's an efficient quarterback. I think trying to make him into something he hasn't proven that he is, especially over the last 3 years, I think would be a mistake. And I think ultimately, if they can get their ground game going, if this outside zone scheme really helps the run game, they can get closer back to what they were in 2024, then I feel really good about this offense. But and this is nothing even to do with Jalen, but if they can't run the ball again and they're one-dimensional, and then you have no AJ Brown anymore, and it's Mekhi Lemon as a rookie and Dontavian Wicks, and I think DeVonta is going to be good, but Dallas Goedert's another year older now. I mean, is he going to continue to get better? Is he going to regress? I mean, I don't know. I think there's major question marks about this offense, and it's the one reason I'm most concerned about this team this year. I think we talked about it last week. I feel really good about this defense giving this team a safe floor. And I expect this offense maybe to be a little bit better this year just because it's not a high bar to reach. They were awful last year. But how much better will it be is the question. And I don't know if they're going to be significantly better. Until I see that, it's hard to feel like this team is, going to be able to compete with a team like the Rams in the NFC, even though they've beaten them, the last, 3 times, they've played them. So we'll see what happens with the offense.
I'm with you, man. This is a Saquon Barkley season for the Philadelphia Eagles. I truly believe that. He is going to have a big year. And I'm not saying 2,000 yards, but I am saying 16, 17, somewhere in that range, be more of an impact in the passing game, which he should be because they're going to try to utilize him more. caught a big touchdown in practice the other day on a wheel route. Seems to be catching the football better, maybe because he's more focused on it. He's got to have a big – they got to fix first down, Kate. They got to fix first down.
They got to. I mean, I think it's the biggest key to this year because, I mean, we can rip what the passing game did last year. We can rip how Jalen played. We can rip all of that. We can rip Kevin Patullo. I mean, I don't think Kevin Patullo was great. But when your offensive line, you're watching Cam Jurgens, 3 yards in the backfield on a first time. I'm not trying to pick on Cam, but like stuff like this would happen. And Saquon Barkley's getting buried in the backfield in 2nd and 14. It's hard to live like that as an offense. And I think ultimately – those guys didn't play well last year, and I think the Eagles probably believe to some level that the run scheme kind of got old. They tried doing different things at the end of the year. We saw Jeff Stoutland leave. Now they have Chris Cooper and Ryan Mahaffey in here, and I think they're hoping that this offensive scheme in general helps. Not just the run game, but the pass game, but especially the run game. I think they're hoping that it can.
I think it's more about the running game than pass. I've been saying that since. Nick kind of let me in with that Easter egg at the pre-combine thing. We said it's just as much about fixing the junk that they're seeing in the running game than it is with the passing game.
Yeah, and they've. I mean, I think that is true, and I think they believe this is they've used the word over and over again this offseason, marrying the run and pass game. I feel like they didn't have a good balance of being able to kind of sequence run and pass plays and marrying it all together where it was like cohesive and effective. And I feel like they're hoping this scheme leads to a really balanced offense. But yeah, I fully expect them to run the ball more than they pass the ball. I think this is going to be a run first offense still. I go back to, and I think Jalen is a much better player than Malik Willis was, but I was watching that Christmas game, or not Christmas game, it was after Christmas, but it was a Sunday night game with Green Bay and Baltimore. And it was Malik Willis going under center a ton, running from under center. They gashed the Ravens defense in that game with a bunch of outside zone runs, play action with Malik Willis. And Malik Willis looked awesome in that game. He was efficient.
Yeah, got him a big deal, big contract.
Ran the offense really well. I expect this team to go under center a ton and run the ball a lot this year. And Jalen, I think Jalen will have a good year if that is the case. If they can run the ball well successfully, I think Jalen is a very efficient quarterback when asked to do what he does well. And I think Jalen will have a good year.
On the flip side of that, if they continue living in 2nd and 3rd and long, this is going to be bad. And I'm going to give Mekhi Lemon a nod here. Look, I don't know. They've been operating for a long time. They knew that AJ is not going to be here. He's, not been at voluntary work. They knew. They knew he wasn't going to be here, obviously. But I don't know whether it was the finality of the trade. And then Mekhi shows up with a hamstring and he's not able to participate in OT. Boy, that looked bad, Caden. I mean, you're running out. You got DeVonta, of course, he's fine. You're running out Dontavian Wicks, some Elijah Moore. I saw some Elijah Moore, Hollywood Brown, first team reps. You're not overcoming 2nd and 3rd long with that group out there.
No. If Mekhi can't stay out, I mean, it's too early to say whether it's going to affect him. I mean, I don't think it'll affect him long term. But I mean, if he were to get hurt, even if Dontavian Wicks would get hurt, I think there's obviously been a lot of hype with Dontavian Wicks. I think Dontavian Wicks from his teammates. I think Dontavian Wicks is a solid player. Imagine if he just gets hurt, then you have to play Hollywood Brown more. You have to play, I don't know, Darius Cooper more.
Johnny Wilson, throw some Johnny Wilson in there.
You don't want to get in that mix up. Yeah, I mean. That was bad timing. I'll say. I think the moment might have felt worse than the actual reality going forward.
It's just you're right. I mean, obviously it's not going to affect Mekhi. He's not going to practice next week, but he should be ready for training camp. And hopefully, you never know with hamstrings and receivers, but hopefully he'll be fine. But even with him out there, it's like it's going to be a much tougher slog without AJ Brown.
Yeah.
It's just so to me, the running game has become more important.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I think the one thing for the passing game that, I mean, obviously you don't want to be in second 13, second 14, but I think we've seen a little bit of it in OTAs. There's some of these shorter passes that they're working on. Not just
it's just dump off, dump off, dump off. Oh my God.
But the one thing I would say about like even like as good as DeVonta and AJ have been, I mean, I think Dallas has been solid, but like I don't think these guys have gotten a ton of like yak yards. I feel like they haven't been like too creative after the catch. Mekhi Lemon is really good in that area. He's extremely tough after the catch and breaks a ton of tackles. I think
Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's what everybody says. Hopefully.
Eli Stowers was pretty good after the catch at Vanderbilt. I mean, it's just because he's so explosive. I mean, I think
how does he play though?
Where does he play? Or how do
you get him out there?
I mean, do you use him almost like? I mean, obviously he's listed as a tight end, and they think he can get better as a blocker, but you use him almost as like a big X sometimes. You move him out on the perimeter. I mean, I think that's the best bet as a rookie is that you use him.
Well, as much as Eli Stowers stands out as an athlete, as a tight end, and obviously his testing numbers were through the roof. I mean, you put him as an X receiver, he's below average.
That's
he's not Drake London. He's not AJ Brown. Drake's just getting $140 million. Those are X receivers, you're taking a strength and you're making it a weakness if you're playing him at X. But I do see like eventually, like 2-3 years down the road, I think Eli Stowers could be a big difference maker. But to me, and obviously Green Bay and the Rams and the 49ers like to use a lot of multiple tight end sets, and you need guys who can do both. And that's why it's going to be tough to put him out there with Dallas Goedert unless Dallas raises his performance in the blocking game again after last season. So you almost have to have Johnny Munn out there, which limits you in the receiving game.
Yeah, and it goes back to the run game again, where Johnny Munn is known for being, one of the best blocking tight ends in the NFL. I think it's a fair point. Eli Stowers, I think, I would agree with you that he's probably going to be a better player 3 years from now than he is now, but because of the blocking limitations. I mean, at Vanderbilt, I think, and he's talked about, I think the willingness is there, and he has the frame to grow into a good blocker. I mean, he's huge, but I just don't think he doesn't have the technique yet, and he probably has to add a little more weight. He's a former quarterback, 3 or
3 years ago.
Yeah. So it's going to take him some time. I'm fascinated with this offense. There's a ton of, they have a lot more pieces I think are overall than last year. They're interesting, and I wonder how they all fit together. And that's up to Sean Mannion. Can Sean Mannion elevate the talent with his scheme?
He is an evil genius.
Yeah, he's going to have to.
Why is he evil, by the way? Jordan Mailata, why is he evil?
I view that, and he said the wizard quote. I just view that he's like, in the film room, like rubbing his hands together, like laughing with an evil grin. He's like, I'm gonna beat all these defense. I think that was kind of more what it was.
I agree, Cam. Good interpretation.
Jordan was just joking. Yeah. But sometimes Jordan's a great dude, obviously, but like he pumps people up. Like he's a good hype man. You want Jordan Mailata as your hype man. Like he's pumping up Uar, he's pumping up
Markel Bell.
Markel Bell, he's pumping up, everybody's, the greatest thing since and I think people buy it. So I think sometimes it hurts the guys, it might hurt Sean Mannion a little bit because he is going to have some growing pains, which is natural. We got to meet Ryan Mahaffey and Josh Grizzard this week. Anything exciting you cull from them? I like that Brian Mahaffey was talking about the running game. It's like, we can't do anything in a running. He basically admitted it. You can't do anything in a running game yet. Yeah, I like that part of it.
Yeah, I don't know if anything like in particular stood out from those guys. I thought Ryan Mahaffey's background was cool. That's the biggest part I took out. He almost went to law school before he became a coach. Was almost a lawyer.
He's going to be a lawyer. Yeah.
That was cool.
Child advocacy he was thinking about.
Yes, I remember that. Josh Grisard, I thought, again, I don't know what these guys. I mean, Josh Grisard talked about his role. Obviously, we all wonder what the pass game coordinator would do. Talked about helping Manning playing for first. Of an impact these guys are ultimately going to have. I mean, it comes down to Sean Mannion. I mean, how good Sean Mannion is as an offensive coordinator. I mean, I wonder how much of a true impact Brian Mahaffey and Josh Grisard are going to have on this year's team success. Maybe Josh Grisard is a future OC when Sean if Sean Mannion hits.
Well, I think I kind of feel bad for Brian Mahaffey because I think people think like the run coordinator role is bigger than it is. And obviously coming up with Stoutland, I think he's got big shoes to live up to.
Yeah, and so does Chris Cooper because this offensive line is really bad. I feel like people are going to look at how the Eagles got rid of Jeff Stoutland, and I just feel like that's an immense amount of pressure too, not just Sean Mannion, for Chris Cooper. I mean, the offensive line stunk with Jeff Stoutland last year, so if they stink again, I feel like at that point.
Well, we were saying that they did not stink, Kate.
Yeah,
they were that up to their. If you look at I don't care what you like. If you like PFF, if you like, I mean, they were still, especially pass blocking, they were still a good offense. You know how many bad offensive lines there are in this league?
That's probably a little harsh.
Up to their expectations, which the year prior they'd one of the I believe one of the great offensive line seasons in NFL history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they didn't live up to that. But they were better than most teams on the offensive line last year.
Yeah. I mean, they weren't good at run blocking. I mean, I feel like that was as effective.
They struggled. And particularly, Cam struggled. Yeah. Landon wasn't himself. Landon actually was the worst of I think it was worse for him in pass protection. Yeah. And Lane wasn't there for half the year. I mean, Lane was playing like Lane before he got hurt.
Yeah.
And Jordan was like, I think PFF had him as the best player in all of football the year prior. So obviously he was still good, but he wasn't that good. And then Tyler Steen, I thought was fine. Not great, not bad. I thought he was fine. So I don't know. I think I often say if Cam and Landon, they won 11 games. People act like they won 5 games. If Cam and Landon were themselves, they probably win 13 games.
I would agree with that. And if they bounce back to themselves this year and the run game's elite, they probably win 12 or 13 games this year as well. But I think if they don't run the ball as effectively again,
but they definitely got to run without AJ. They definitely got to run the ball.
And what's your expectation, Caden, from Mekhi Lemon this year?
I mean, I loved Mekhi Lemon coming out, but I mean, I don't know exactly. I mean, I think he's going to be a good NFL player because I think he's a good route runner. I think he's really good after the catch, and I think he does a lot of different things. Well, obviously, he's not like the best athlete in the world, and he's undersized. I mean, and that's why he fell to 20. I think he's a good player, but I mean, he's missing time in OTAs now. I have no idea what the scheme's going to look like, how they're going to utilize him. I think he's going to be a good player, but I think the expectations as a rookie need to be tempered a little bit. Like, I don't know if he's going to go out and have 1,000 yards as a rookie. I mean, long term, I think he's a good player. I have to see this offense first, but my guess is probably like 600, 700 yards. As their main slot wide receiver. I'm sure he'll play on the outside a little bit as well because I do think he can do it. A little bit as well, but I would say I'm keeping my expectations like a moderate.
Yeah,
even though
I like really it, Cade. That's I said 600-700 somewhere in that range.
I love the player. I mean, he was one of my favorite players before the Eagles draft. I'm just watching him at USC.
It's funny because Caden does love the player, and people think I dislike Mekhi Lemon because of what I said, and he's not DeVonta Smith. And we both ended up at the same prediction, which is basically 600-700 yards.
Yeah, I can love the player, but not think he's going to go for 1,000. I think it's mainly because like this offense. if the passing offense is efficient, I think most of it's going to run through DeVonta Smith. Like, I think DeVonta Smith is going to have a career year. Whereas, like, I think Mekhi Lemon does so many things well. I think he's going to help with the run block. I mean, talk about the blocking, especially on the perimeter. I think he's a really good blocker for his size. Like, he clears defensive backs out of the way, creates lanes for more yards after the catch for the guys on the perimeter, the wide receivers, the tight ends, the running backs you get out there. And I think he does a lot of the dirty work really well. And I think if he can help the offense with his yak ability and break tackles, I think he could be a really good chain mover, and I think he's more explosive than people give him credit. And I think long term, he's going to be a really good player. But I just don't know how this passing offense is going to function. So until I see it, it's hard to predict. But I mean, the passing offense is amazing. I think he'll thrive. I mean, I think he's a good player, but I just don't know what it's going to look like yet. And I have long term confidence in Mekhi Lemon. I just don't know this year.
All right. Yeah, I think that's fair, but I would temper the expectations in year one. If it's week one and we're talking about 12 personnel, obviously it's going to be DeVonta. Do you think the second receiver is going to be Dontavian or Mekhi week one?
I think it'll be Mekhi. I mean, as much as the Dontavian Wicks hype has been, I mean, Quinion said he's given him some problems. They've talked highly about him, and they did give him an extension of $12 million. They obviously don't think he's just, some random player. I mean, I think he's going to have a role on offense, but I think it would be Mekhi Lemon, unless Mekhi Lemon doesn't look good in training camp and he gets off to a slow start and missing time.
Yeah, I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world. I mean, I don't think it's if Dontavian. I think it would be if the whole year went that way. I think it would be a bad sign. But if he takes over that role in like week 7 or week 8, I don't think that's a bad thing. I wouldn't be upset by that.
No, and I think Dontavian Wicks has played more football than him. I think,
and he knows the offense. Yeah, he's the only guy here who knows the offense.
Yeah,
in theory.
I mean, it's a possibility that Dontavian Wicks starts over Mekhi Lemon. I wouldn't rule that out. If week 1, if they're in 12 personnel. It's definitely a possibility. We got to see how Mekhi Lemon looks in training camp. I have no feel for him yet as a pro player because obviously we haven't really seen him other than one OTA practice, and I can't really read much.
Oh, I have to ask you before we're running out of time. You got to fix your.
I know it's been the same
X profile. Caden underscore. It's too much. I have to bring it up. But anyway, Andy Dalton getting second team reps, and it's now I brought it up at Caden underscore Steele 19. Make sure you follow Caden on the X platform. Read him at nj.com. I don't know, man. Like, we're only there for 2 of the practices, so there's 6 total OTAs, so 33%. I can do that math. So there's a bunch we don't see, but both days we were there, Andy Dalton's taken all the second team reps. And by the way, when they were indoors, it was raining. He didn't look that good, but outdoors, he looked really sharp. And when you look at the processing between Andy and Jalen Hurts, never mind Tanner McKee and Cole Payton, there was a significant difference.
Yeah.
Are you buying this? I mean, already when the Eagles made this trade, we were all like, oh boy, here we go. When's the other shoe dropping with Tanner McKee? And the Eagles are like, no, this has nothing to do with Tanner McKee. He's the backup quarterback. Well, he's already getting massive second team reps. Something's changed. Are you buying this? I'm starting to think Andy Dalton's the backup quarterback.
I'm starting to buy it too. Because one, if it was just, the second team reps, maybe they're trying to get Andy comfortable with the offense. I mean, there's some theory like, will they trade Tanner? Maybe they think they're going to trade Tanner. They're just trying to get Andy ready. Andy Dalton's outperformed Tanner McKee. And I know it's just the spring, but just like you mentioned, everything that, and I'm not saying Andy Dalton, you want him starting games, but the way he runs the offense in practice is so efficient. He's getting through his reads. He's just everything. I mean, at least the last practice we saw, it just felt like the ball was coming out of his hands extremely quick. He knew where he was going with the football, and he was extremely accurate, like beautiful passes down the seam. He had one, I forget who he was throwing to. It was like tight end or something, but it was over the middle, and
EJ Jenkins.
And he drops it over Chance Campbell's head in a bucket. I mean, Andy Dalton's looked looked awesome. It looked like Andy Dalton was in his prime a little bit. The Bengals. He looked like has a really good understanding of this offense. He was efficient, and I'm watching Tanner, run those 13 reps, and I get it. It's just spring, but it just seems a little more hesitant about where he's going with the football. He wasn't as accurate as Andy Dalton. And Andy Dalton knows this scheme. He's played in similar schemes. They brought him in, I think, for that reason, to be, kind of like I thought as like a player coach, like help Jalen kind of learn this scheme, help Jalen grow as a quarterback and evolve. Have a guy like that here to help push Jalen, help push the rest of the quarterback room. But maybe they think Andy Dalton is better for this scheme as the backup than Tanner McKee is. And I think maybe this is the time where kind of ruining the trade value here, if there is any.
I know. I'm like, if you want to trade him, put him out in front of the media and all rave about him because everybody seems to love him. I think Andy's the backup quarterback.
I think it's been it's 2 practice, and we thought when they practiced last Tuesday, we thought he would be.
What I was told, so Memorial Day week, the practices were Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. So I was told that Tanner got the first team reps on Tuesday. They were rotating. We got to see Wednesday, which was Dalton's day. Friday, in theory, would have been McKee's day. So that meant this week it was Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. That meant Monday should have been Dalton's day. And we were in there Tuesday. And he was out there. So,
yeah,
that story doesn't hold.
Yeah, I don't
rotating from day to day. And by the way, even if they're rotating from day to day, even if that's true, and say they rebooted weeks and Tanner's getting more reps, he's just getting all the reps when we're not there. That's different from what the claim was early on, where Tanner's the backup.
Yeah, and I think. It's even interesting that they're rotating reps. I think that's noteworthy itself. And Andy's played better. He's looked better in OTAs running this offense. And I think Tanner, I don't want to say he's played bad, but he just hasn't looked as comfortable operating this offense when they're running team drills and 7-on-7s. I just don't think he's been as efficient as Andy. And yeah, I think if you told me 2 months ago Andy Dalton would have been the backup, if they had no plans to trade Tanner McKee, I would be shocked. And I don't know what they're going to get for Tanner McKee. Like, who wants to trade for Tanner McKee? Like,
that's what I keep saying.
It's desperate for. I've seen some people say the Cardinals, but they just drafted Carson Beck in the 3rd round.
I know.
Is Tanner McKee that much better than Carson? Obviously, if they thought Tanner McKee was someone they wanted to trade for, they wouldn't have drafted a 3rd round pick on Carson Beck. What team is trading more than like a late round, 7th round? I don't even know I don't know why they would do that. Unless you're really upset about your backup quarterback situation. I'm sure there's teams that have an ugly backup quarterback situation out there. And if they like Tanner McKee, maybe you can fetch a late round pick. But the Eagles supposedly like Tanner McKee so much that they've held on to him so long. There's been, speculation that, they would want a day 2 pick for Tanner McKee. Well, who would trade a day 2 pick for Tanner McKee? It's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen is like a quarterback that's played a couple games. I think he's been okay.
He was great. Okay in one and bad in the other, to be honest.
And there's a ton of hype around him. And here's a 6th round pick from Stanford.
Yeah. Who by that, I'm with you. By that, evaluation, like Davis Mills should get 2 1st round picks because he actually played and won a bunch of games.
Yeah. And as harsh as I'm being on Tanner McKee, Still a little surprised about the Andy Dalton situation, but I agree with you. It's starting to if we're seeing minicamp practice next week again, and Andy Dalton's out with the 2s, and then we start seeing it more and more in training camp, it might be a big shocker here that Andy Dalton's your backup and not Tanner McKee. Which, 2 years ago, everyone was claiming this guy's going to be an NFL starter. Not just fans. I get it. Watch a guy play well in preseason. He looked awesome in preseason. We have NFL analysts coming out talking about how good he could be.
It is weird. I brought it up. It's weird. People latch on to certain players and like Ty Robinson is a guy that everybody is just just they're out. They're out. They were so hyped with him last year, and now they're out. I'm like,
are you out? Are you out?
No, I was hard on him last year, and I'm like, settle down. This guy's not ready.
Yeah.
But Vanilla Gorilla, he played fullback, and I saw the highlights, and he's got the big arms, and I'm like, it's not pro wrestling. I mean, Jordan Mailata was locking him up, and he couldn't move.
No.
But I also, he's a 4th round pick in his 2nd year. Give him time. I expect him to be better this summer. I haven't given up on him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he's going to see the field this year because he's got Byron Young ahead of him.
Well, that's the thing. If there's a guy I'm going to trade player for player, if Ty Robinson proves he can play, they did it last year. That's what they did. Thomas Booker, because Byron was ready to play. Maybe this year Byron's the guy because Ty's ready to play. But that's a big if.
Yes.
Big if.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
No doubt. All right, Caden, good stuff, man. We appreciate you joining in today, per usual. Make sure you guys follow him at Caden_Steele19. Read all his work at NJ.com. Caden, thanks for doing it today, man. We'll catch up with you again soon. All right, brother?
Thank you,
All right,
guys.
thanks, bud.
All right, thanks.
We'll try to get him back next week to finish up the spring, because he'll be at minicamp both days as well.
Yeah, what is that next week, John? Monday and Tuesday, or what is that?
I think it's Tuesday and Wednesday.
9th and 10th, you said, right?
Yeah, I think it's Tuesday.
So that would be Tuesday. That would be Tuesday and Wednesday. All right, it's good. All right, Johnny Mac, coming to the end of the show today, the end of the week here on Birds 365. It was a big week, though, in Eagle Land, John. Obviously, the trade that we've been waiting for happened, and it did not. They did not wait at all. They made it happen on June 1st, right after 4 p.m., J-Max. It was a big week in Eagle Land here in the offseason.
Yeah, it was, and AJ's gone. I thought it would be over, but it's not over. But hopefully it'll be over soon. It's not gonna. Obviously, we're going to talk about it throughout the season. If he's playing well, if he's playing poorly, how Mekhi Lemon's playing here, how Dontavian Wicks, how the Eagles offense. So it's going to be a year-long story. But I thought maybe, it put some closure onto it. Obviously, it has not. Hopefully, people can get out of their feelings and start talking about football again.
Yep, fair enough. I agree. We'll see what ends up. Obviously, we'll see how it all looks, but I do think some people are downplaying a little bit, too much this loss, John. That's not to say they can't prevail without him. That's not my point at all. Just that when you lose a great player, it's hard to replace him, man. It takes a long time to replace players like this. So I'm curious to see what the offense can do, but I'm not going to downplay the loss of A.J. Brown. It's a big one. It's a big one for this team.
No, I mean, anybody downplaying that is just coping. And you literally saw that day one when they're out on the field. It just didn't look the same. And Mekhi was hurt, and that didn't help. But, instead of you had Dontavian Wicks, you had Elijah Moore, you had Hollywood Brown. It wasn't the same.
No, it wasn't. All right, Johnny Mac, your final thoughts here on the week on Birds 365.
Yeah, good. Got some OTA action in, so got to see the team a little bit more, how they're shaping up. Got to meet, as I mentioned, with Caden, Josh Grizzard, and Ryan Mahaffey. So some of the new coaches, some positive assessments from Jordan Mailata that'll get everybody hyped up. And next week it'll be even more mandatory. So, we'll see Lane Johnson out there, presumably. We'll see Jalen Carter out there. And when you have the full boat, it tends to look better.
No doubt. Good stuff, Johnny Mac. I appreciate you doing it today, man. Real quick, let me make sure I got all of our super chats. Oh, one more. You're not gonna like the last super chat of the week. Pumper, J-Mac, we don't care about the Hassan trade, but that doesn't debunk that AJ and Hassan Eiffel Tower. All right, come on, Pump. I mean, what are you making me read here, dude? Come on. All right, John, you don't have to answer that. All right, John, good show, man. I'll catch you on Monday, all right?
All right. Talk to you all then.
All right,
Enjoy the weekend.
All right, dude. Later. There's Johnny Mac, John McMullen joining us right here on Birds 365. Pump, put me in compromising positions here, all right? Be Pump, be cooking. I don't think you ever cook me, Pump. I think you cook everybody else. In fact, Pump, I think I'm your kryptonite, Pump. I am your kryptonite. Pumper can cook everybody except for me. All right? I didn't know I was trying to find your comment, though, of what Fleming was responding to. I don't see it. Oh shit, that's an insult to Zander. What was Pumper saying, Fleming? You're gonna have to tell me. Zander eating good. Pumper can't cook me. Zander, you're easy work. Come on, Pump. Pump, you know better than this. You know better than this. Nobody appreciates the Pumper trolls like I do. All right. But all right, guys, the week has come to an end. It was a big week in Eagle Land, obviously, with the trade of A.J. Brown. So not ideal that he's gone from the team, but I think the team will be all right. I think the team will be all right. But we'll see. That's Fleming. That's fake news. Check it out. I just got a new pair though. I got 2 new pair. You guys want to see them? Woo! What do you think? 2 new pairs of glasses because mine are shot. That's 1 pair. Where's my other pair? My other pair is right here. Woo! 2 new fresh pair. You going Flex? I've been going blind for a while, dude. No, I'm not blind. My prescription's not actually that bad. I thought I was going blind, and then the eye doc was like, "Nah, you're not that bad. All right, you're not that bad at all." So, Colin says, "Zander, how do you feel about AJ having a Patriots rug?" I could care less. I guess I should say I couldn't care less. All right, I guess I should say I couldn't care less. Okay, you have a rug in your house. He's a grown man. Colin, what do you have in your garage? What do you got in your house? I don't care. You just got BGG. I got a nice deal on these. I got a nice deal on them, so I picked up a 2 pair. My other pair is destroyed. Look, they're falling apart. Like they don't work anymore. Everything is busted up in here. These are a nightmare. So I don't need to wear these anymore. You going blind now? It makes sense. You can't see Nick as a step. No, I only need them for far. I don't wear them at all day because I'm working on my computers. Marsh, get a grip, Marsh. I think I'm getting. I got contacts too. I struggle with contacts. I struggle with them. I need to. Yeah, Keith. I had to do that. I wanted to get it all done before the wedding in Italy and stuff, so I did it before all that stuff. But I don't know what Marsh is talking about. Looking sharp. There we go, Chuck. Thank you, brother. You look like your pop. Yeah, I always look like my pop, honestly. I've been blind since the age of 12. All right, guys. Have a great weekend. I think it's supposed to be really nice weather. It's at least beautiful out right now. So I hope you guys all have a great weekend. Enjoy the nice weather, wherever it is you are, whatever you got going on. Actually, I think I might end up at a car show on Sunday at the Union League. All right. I think I got a car show on Sunday at the Union League. I don't know if I'm going yet, but so that's what I might be up to this weekend. I don't know, Ryan. What do you think? You think these are good enough to break out on the wedding day? I hate contacts. These are pretty sharp. In the tuxedo. Get the tuxedo. Maybe need a little gold on my tux to match the frame. You tell me, Ryan. I say wear that. Yeah, Ryan, I was thinking about it. I kind of got a pair that I thought would work. So we'll see. We'll see what I end up doing. I just hate putting contacts in. I don't know. I got weird sensitive eyes. All right. If I go near my eyelid, I just start blinking. I can't put shit in them or take them out. It's a nightmare. You guys remember when I was on Cilio's show after I just got my first pair of contacts in? Brutal. Yeah, Barrett Jackson. That'd be sick, Ronan. I'll do it, man. I'll do it. You let me know. All right. But all right, guys. Love all you guys. Hit that like button. Appreciate everybody for being here and doing it this weekend. And I will catch you guys next time. All right. See you next time, everybody.
EAGLES. Eagles.